Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today told G7 leaders he wanted Russia's war in Ukraine ended by the end of the year before the winter sets in. Addressing the G7 summit in the Bavarian Alps via video link, Zelensky said battle conditions would make it tougher for his troops as they mount their fight back against Vladimir Putin's men. He therefore urged the G7 leaders to do their utmost to end the war by the year's end, as he asked for anti-aircraft defense systems and security guarantees. Zelensky also pleaded with the leaders to intensify sanctions against Russia as he stressed the necessity to keep heaping heavy punitive action on Moscow and to not lower the pressure. The Ukrainian president asked for help to export grain from Ukraine and for reconstruction aid, the European official said, speaking on condition of anonymity. Zelensky addressed the leaders of Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan and the United States by video link on Monday, the second day of the three-day G7 summit in southern Germany. The high-level talks come a day after Kyiv suffered the first Russian onslaught on the capital in 3 weeks, Ukraine said, with a missile attack hitting a residential building and leaving one person dead. Two women were also killed by Russian bombardments on the northeastern Kharkiv region over the past 24 hours, the local governor said on Monday. The G7 leaders will commit on Tuesday to a new package of coordinated actions meant to raise pressure on Russia over its war in Ukraine, and will finalize plans for a price cap on Russian oil, a senior U.S. official said on Monday. The U.S. is also planning to send Ukraine sophisticated anti-aircraft missiles to defend against Russian attacks, a source familiar with the process said on Monday. President Joe Biden has made the procurement of advanced air defense systems for Ukraine a priority, the source said, asking not to be identified. An announcement is likely this week on the purchase of an advanced medium to long-range surface-to-air missile defense system, as well as other weaponry to help Ukraine fight Russia's invasion. Zelensky's address to G7 leaders came amid news that Russia defaulted on its foreign sovereign bonds for the first time since the Bolshevik coup more than a century ago, as sweeping sanctions effectively cut the country off from the global financial system and rendered its assets untouchable to many investors. A U.S. official said on Monday the default showed how dramatically the sanctions were impacting Russia's economy. The official was speaking to reporters as the White House released a fact sheet detailing potential G7 actions to support Ukraine and further stem Moscow's oil revenues. The dual objectives of G7 leaders have been to take direct aim at Russian President Vladimir Putin's revenues, particularly through energy, but also to minimize the spillovers and the impact on the G7 economies and the rest of the world, the U.S. official said on the sidelines of the annual G7 summit. But the Kremlin on Monday rejected claims that it has defaulted on its external debt. The Kremlin has repeatedly said there are no grounds for Russia to default, but it is unable to send money to bondholders because of sanctions, accusing the West of trying to drive it into an artificial default. In a call with reporters, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Russia made bond payments due in May, but the fact they had been blocked by Euroclear because of Western sanctions on Russia was not our problem. The country has struggled to keep up payments on $40 billion, £32 billion, of outstanding bonds since its invasion of Ukraine on February 24, as sweeping sanctions have effectively cut the country off from the global financial system and rendered its assets untouchable to many investors. Russia's efforts to avoid what would be its first major default on international bonds since the Bolshevik Revolution more than a century ago hit an insurmountable roadblock in late May when the U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, effectively blocked Moscow from making payments. Our position is well known. Our reserves are blocked unlawfully, and all attempts to use these reserves will also be unlawful and would amount to outright theft, Peskov said. In response to the war in Ukraine, G7 nations, which account for nearly half the world's economic output, are determined to crank up the pressure on Russia without stoking already soaring inflation that is particularly hurting the global south. The price cap could hit the Kremlin's war chest while actually lowering energy prices. G7 leaders will also make an unprecedented, long-term security commitment to providing Ukraine with financial, humanitarian, military and diplomatic support as long as it takes, including the timely provision of advanced weapons, the White House said in a fact sheet. Western sanctions have hit Russia's economy hard, and the new measures are aimed at further depriving the Kremlin of oil revenues. G7 countries will work with others, including India, to limit the revenues that Putin can continue to generate, according to the U.S. official.